It's another fine day at Camp Dynasty. I am Counselor Austin, joined by Counselor Collin. Last week, we kicked off season 4 of Camp Dynasty, taking a look at the 2026 wide receiver class, which left a little bit something to be desired. We had a very fun name at the top, a few other interesting names, and then a lot of question marks. Will that be the same for the 2026 running back class? That is what we are here to answer today, talking about everybody's favorite position in fantasy football, the running back.
Yeah, the one that everybody seems to need, but everybody can never seem to acquire. Nobody's ever willing to move off other running backs. They go for 4 first-round picks while they have value, and then they turn 26 and nobody wants them anymore. So then they're only worth something to the guy that has them, and the cycle continues as we continue to draft more and more guys throughout the years. So we're here to talk about the next group of guys, and I thought that this class has a little more promise than I expected going in. I know we've been talking about the number one guy, presumptive number one guy, and we'll see if we have him there today. But we've been talking about him for a while. But outside of that, I wasn't really sure where these guys were going to fall in line. And I was, pleasantly surprised by a couple of guys. I don't know if it's like a loaded superstar class, but I think that there's definitely some promise here with these names.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of a hangover effect for me coming off of the 2025 class because it was so exceptional and deep. Like I did feel a little bit disappointed watching this class. I had a very similar experience to last week where I had a guy on the top that was like rocked my universe, and then everybody else just sort of clumped together, and I was left kind of wondering, how good actually are you? So, but to your point, I think that's not to say this is necessarily a bad class. I think we just have to readjust our expectations coming off of a year with Ashton Genty, Omari and Hampton, Quinshawn Judkins, Travion Henderson,
Yeah.
Caleb Johnson. I mean, it is ridiculous what we just experienced. So we're going to dive into 2026 top fives. And man, I kind of am wondering if we're going to have this a similar experience as last week where our lists were wildly different or not. But I can kick us off this week.
Hey, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So number 5, I feel like is going to be higher on your list, but he is an old friend of the
Yeah, he
program.
is.
It's Nicholas Singleton.
Yeah, I have him at 4, so I don't have him a ton
Oh,
higher,
okay.
but I do have him at 4.
Okay. So Singleton, 1 year ago at this time, we were talking about him, and that feels like an eternity. So when these guys repeat on summer scouting, it's like, you've been here for like 6 years,
Yeah.
haven't you? It's like, no, he's only been here for a year. We thought he was going to come out in the 2025 draft because, he was part of that recruiting class. He had the freshman season alongside of Quinshawn Judkins, exploded onto the scene, looked like the next guy, and then kind of hit a wall in his sophomore season and bounced back pretty well in his junior year. Ended the season really strong. The college football playoff was really kind of some of his best games of the season, and he had a lot of momentum then going towards the 2025 draft, and a lot of people thought that he would declare. And when we talked about him on Rankings 2.0 in January, you and I were still very like lukewarm on him. I don't exactly remember where you fell with him. I think he was towards the back of your 8 though.
Yeah.
And I think he was just off of mine. And it was because of the same things that we talked about in the summer, which is that he is an exceptional athlete, but he is still not playing running back at a high level. He's having success. He's having big moments, he's having big plays because of his athleticism, but from a down to down, carry to carry basis, he is not playing the position at the level that you or I had hoped to see 1 year later. And so that is very much the same for me today. I mean, everything I talked about, everything you talked about, I think you can run that back from January here. We don't have any new information, no new film on him, but I think in a class like this one, I'll be curious to see as we move through this list what kind of guys you have, because for me, this is one of the bigger upside players in this group of running backs. I can't put him above some of these guys today, but if he has another season where he's kind of building on it, you can see it kind of coming together, then he can easily jump to a spot much higher on this list. But today, he just doesn't play running back at that level.
Yeah, and at some point you gotta like take the hypotheticals out of it and like just play the sport as well as you did as a freshman. But part of that is like he felt like he was even more athletic then than he is now, and so I don't know. I guess that's the biggest, like that's the analysis of Singleton is I don't know exactly what I'm gonna see out of this player, and but if we see more of the same, then this is in the range that he's probably gonna end up, and so I can only like bet on him so many times, like I did last year. You sit here and you're like, man, you see that upside freshman year, you get a little slump sophomore year, but the flashes were enough to like see the development, like see the developmental path, and then you see kind of this almost the same, like a similar player between his junior and his freshman year, which is a good player but not like a high level NFL starting running back. So that's kind of where you end up. It's like you see a lot of inconsistencies. You see some tunnel vision problems where he locks in on a spot and he'll go and just kind of run into traffic when there's a cutback lane. You'll see, he's like athletic, but he's not like his hips aren't that loose, and so he's not like kind of hopping around and sliding through traffic. It's so a lot of hit and miss with Singleton. That's why he ends up towards the bottom of this list, even though once upon a time he was the guy. I was hoping that you'd at least have him in your top five, because I was like, I feel like I'm still like feeling it with Singleton a little bit, but I'm definitely not like aggressively high on him anymore.
Yeah, I definitely will say it is a product of this class that he is in the top five. This is not me having like some renaissance moment with
Yeah.
Singleton being like, one more chance, buddy. It's like it really is a product of the names around him in this class. And for that reason, I think it makes a lot of sense that he opted to return to school. I think a lot of people were confused by that because a lot of people really liked him. We saw the big run in the college football playoff game, the breakaway run, and everyone's like, this is the guy,
Yep.
and it's like, well, he can do that, but what else can he do? And I think, he was probably getting feedback that was different from what a lot of media people were saying about him, which was that he could possibly be like a round two type of a pick. I don't think that was in the cards for him. And so hopefully this year we can see that next level of development to get him up into that, round two conversation, but that's definitely not where I would have him today.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a long ways away from there.
Yeah. All right. So that's your number 4,
Mm-hmm.
my number 5, and your number 5 is
Also, a familiar name. If you listen like all of last season, you probably caught his name a few times. I don't know if he ever made it like into the show as a featured piece, but Jaydn Ott.
okay.
Yeah, is he on your five?
He's not in my 5.
Okay. So Jaydn Ott was at Cal, moving to Oklahoma this year. Um, Definitely like a fun running back. He like was very early in the season. Like almost like first 1 or 2 weeks, Cal like ran a full campaign behind Jaydn Ott. There was like a Hot to Go parody song about Jaydn Ott. There was a Ott for Heisman. Like there was a whole like, and then college football game day was at Cal, and that was a whole thing. All the signs. So if you remember that, you'll remember this was what that player was about. But outside of that, fun player to watch. I mean, he's got like he's the like kind of speed demon running back. He's got acceleration. He's got long speed. He is a nice receiving back. He can operate out of the slot. He tracks the ball pretty well for a running back. He has good patience behind blockers, waits for things to develop, and then like hits that gas and uses up those afterburners. So I really like his vision and the way he uses and varies his speeds. He can run kind of tall is my biggest issue is he gives you a big target to hit, and he's not like overly thick, so he's not like bouncing off a lot of tackles. And the pass protection, it's hard to keep. If you're going to be a pass catching back, you also have to be a pass protecting back in case you get checked in on a blitz. You got to be able to hold it down. So, and then the injury stuff that's going to happen with a smaller back. He's not tiny, but he's not. He's 6'2", 210, which is like fine, but it seems like he might be a little under that.
Yeah, I do like Ott quite a bit. So I have two players, and we'll talk about the other one at the end, unless you have him in your top five, that are just question marks heading into this upcoming season. And it almost felt like I was putting like an incomplete on the report card right now for these two guys. And in Ott's case, it was because of this last season being so out of character because of the ankle injury that he had, and it lingered and he dealt with it. So, the final production numbers obviously don't look that great, and it's kind of like, what the hell happened here? But it is a complete fresh start for him this year at Oklahoma. So it's very exciting to see, like, will we see that return to form from 2023? Because the 1,300-yard player, breakaway run machine, like, let's get back to that, and then we can certainly have his name well in this top five conversation, and maybe even higher on this list by the end of the year if he shows that he's fully back, and that he maybe has even added a little bit more to his game. Because I think he is, for me, I think he's real kind of pure speed in a lot of cases. He's not offering a ton of power, contact balance type of stuff. I don't think he's super elusive. He certainly has the ability to make guys miss, but I think he is a little bit more of that straight line speed runner, which he does at an extremely high level. And you mentioned the pass catching work as well. So I think in a class like this, again, when we talk about athleticism and upside, that is going to be something that certainly is at play in a class like this one, because there are going to be guys that I'm talking about coming up that are not high upside super athletes. So a guy like Ott and a guy like Singleton can certainly climb in this sort of a class.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the big thing, the reason that he makes it on this list for me is if you're in a PPR league, you're definitely going to be keeping an eye on him, because he's the type of guy where, get him out on a route with some blockers ahead of him, and he can, get you a big chunk. And he's a home run hitter. So definitely agree, I'd say, with our analysis. And
Yeah.
excited to see what he does at the new school, because Cal's offense was a little weird too.
Yeah, no, I think the run blocking grades are not favorable to them. So hopefully this Oklahoma offense can find something this year, and he'll be a big part of it if they do. So, all right. Well, that is number 5 for you.
Yep.
And so
number 4 for me, and you're number 5, so we're at your number 4.
Okay, so we're at my number 4, and here's where we're going to start getting into players that I would not label as necessarily high upside, because number 4 for me is Darius Taylor.
Okay, he's not in my 5.
He's not in it?
Nope.
Okay, so background on Darius Taylor. I feel like we've probably referenced this name at some point along the journey because he is a 2-year starter at Minnesota. 6', 215. He was a 3-star recruit in the class of 2023. He had 800 yards and 5 touchdowns as a true freshman, as a 3-star in the Big Ten. That's pretty impressive. And so that kind of put him on the map and on the radar for folks. Last year, he followed it up 204 carries, 987 yards, and 10 touchdowns. So, not a massive season, but right around that 1,000-yard marker and, building on that freshman year. So he was a player that I was really excited to watch just because, we've kind of been watching him grow. He's a player that we've seen like catching a lot of passes. So I had a lot of, hope that he could be, a guy that was sitting maybe in the number 2 spot in this class. And the athletic limitations that he has, I think were just, I wouldn't say they're disqualifying, but let's just say I'm extremely concerned about Darius Taylor because he exhibits one of the things that has been a fatal flaw for guys when we've talked about them and then seen what has unfolded, which is the initial foot speed is just not quick enough. He is not getting into his run quick enough. And I think a little bit of that is also, hesitation and not really having a clear picture of what's unfolding in front of him quickly enough. So, like, I put him here at number 4 with sort of this caveat that I wouldn't be surprised if this is like Ollie Gordon or Audric Estime or any of these guys, Raheem Sanders, guys that we've talked about that show you impressive flashes, but they're just not quite playing at the speed that they're going to need to play at the next level. Now, with all of that out of the way, why is he here at number 4 then? He's just a fun running back to watch. He's incredibly physical, routinely running through arm tackles, showing an ability to flatten guys. I mean, he's running over safeties consistently when he breaks into the third level. 3.91 yards after contact per attempt in 2024. Also thought, despite his kind of lackluster foot speed at the point of attack, he is pretty good at navigating traffic that's coming at him in the backfield. Like when a defender is penetrating, he's able to kind of dance around them in a way that sets him up to then, evade that tackler and get some positive yardage out of a play that was seemingly, completely blown up. Another Ollie Gordon trait, when he gets into the open field, when he breaks through the second level, those long strides, he can get moving a little bit. I wouldn't say he has that sort of like breakaway potential like Gordon did, back in his heyday, but he is faster than I expected when he broke through the second level. And it's because he's got longer legs and a longer stride. And then, like I said, the receiving skill set is impressive. I mean, he's not running a ton of routes for Minnesota, but 54 catches last year, 350 or 349 yards. The hands look pretty natural. So even for a player here that I'm calling a little bit low upside because of his athleticism, I think there is a world from a fantasy perspective where Taylor factors in because of the kind of dual skill set that he has as a runner and a receiver. But he's certainly a player that comes with a lot of caveats.
Yeah, I think you could live in two worlds with this player where one is you can be like an every down back, and that's what everybody's looking for in fantasy. Is you want the guy that can stay on the field no matter what, and he's got these soft natural hands. He's a pretty solid pass protector, and then he can also bully people between the tackles. And the reason I left him off my top 5 is the reasons pretty much that you stated. Is like he feels like he doesn't have that. He doesn't have the the read before the play of like, what's my plan A, what's my plan B, how am I gonna get out if this guy, you know, shoots front side, how am I gonna get backside. It just feels like he's reacting to stuff that's happening in front of him, and it slows him down at the start, and then he can never like, not never, but he doesn't occasionally get up to that top speed, and then gets kind of stuck in the mud. So that seemed like it popped up a little more often than I would have liked it to. But yeah, I like how he looks on, you know, 85% of these plays where he's, you know, fighting through traffic. He's got really, really good contact balance, like bordering like maybe elite contact balance. Like he is, his lower body is like really strong. And so I like this guy. I would love to see some more like dynamic activity as a running back, but it's like solid and consistent, and that's maybe all you can really ask for.
Yeah, like preliminary grades for me at number 4, I have an early 4th
Right.
on him. Like that's what we're like. RB4 last year was going top of the second round.
Yeah.
Like this is a different universe we're living in. But and that's exactly what you said. There's just like a consistent, maybe like we can kind of count on him to be, you know, have a strength profile that can exist in the NFL, have a receiving profile. Like maybe that's a RB4 in this class. I don't know. So we'll see what Taylor does in this upcoming season. But in the meantime, let's see if we can get on the same trajectory now at number 3.
Yeah. So my number 3 is Makhi Hughes.
Same.
Okay. So Makhi Hughes is, from what I see, pretty downhill runner. Doesn't dance a whole lot. Makes himself really compact in the hole. He like never misses an opportunity to put two hands on the ball and get skinny. Like he is getting the ball, and he's a good goal line back. He plays, it feels like a little bigger than he is. He's around 5'11", 210, same as Ott, who we were talking about as like small before. Feels like Hughes carries the weight a little better, and like, not that he's bowling over people, but it feels like he's just really difficult to get wrapped up. Little background is he was a redshirt freshman because of injury. He's Tulane's running back, which I don't know if I mentioned, but in 2023, first player in Tulane history to get over 1,000 yards as a freshman. And then he had 1,400 yards and 15 touchdowns. He was a Doak Walker semifinalist in his sophomore year. And then he went to Oregon to continue being this good running back. So we'll see what he does not on Tulane, on the big stage in the Big Ten, and see if he can, you know, put together a season like he has with these like huge numbers. But I think that he is, you know, pretty impressive what he does, and again, a pretty consistent player. Turns 3 yards into 5 yards more often than not, falls forward. It just, there's some players that never feel like they take a big hit and never feel like they're falling backwards. It's always like these guys can't get a solid square up, and it's just working every time for Hughes. So I like this guy a lot. I'm interested. I don't know if he's like an every down guy, but I think he's definitely someone to keep an eye on now that he's playing a different like level of competition.
And that's the biggest story with Hughes for me this year is how will this jump in competition affect him? Because typically, you know, when we talk about these guys, like when we were talking about Genty, even, no, not comparing the two, but when we talked about a player that's playing at Boise State, like how do you look against these opponents? I think for Hughes, it's going to be pretty critical for him to show quickly that he can hang in the Big Ten, because he was destroying the American Conference opponents on the schedule. But the games that I watched were not those games. I watched Kansas State, I watched Oklahoma, I believe, and one other one. Like I tried to watch the best games that I could from his schedule. And I thought like in those instances he looked good. He looked fine. But like when you look at the stat sheet and you look at 1,400 yards and 15 touchdowns, like I didn't see that level of dominance against the better opponents on the schedule. And I mean, that's reflected too. I mean, he did have 124 yards against Kansas State, but for me, it didn't look particularly like, oh yeah, this guy belongs in, he should be playing in Alabama or something, like so for me, it's going to be very, important that he kind of takes a step up this year.
Yep.
But that being said, like I'm with you. I did like what I saw from him, obviously enough to have him here at number 3 in the class. I thought he had really good burst, like up the middle. He would kind of, accelerate quickly, and all of a sudden he's into the second level. That was impressive for a player that, like you said, he is a little bit smaller, but like he carries his weight
Mm-hmm.
in a particular, like he looks like a bigger player. It's
Yeah.
exactly what you said. I had the same experience watching him. um, Good feeder on the line of scrimmage. Another guy that can kind of navigate traffic, navigate penetrating defenders, work himself, into a favorable position. Solid leg drive through contact, adequate ability as a yard creator. Obviously you see that he's taken on guys. It's like you said, he turns 3 into 5 consistently. Love to see that. Uh, really good in pass protection from what I saw as well. And also has not fumbled in his college career.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the things to really like about Hughes. Really solid player. I think for me, the weaknesses are, for as strong as his lower body appears when he's kind of taking on guys, I'd like to see him kind of add a little bit more there.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know he's a smaller player and it's maybe unreasonable for to expect him to, run guys over consistently, but given that you see him consistently breaking tackles and kind of, you know, powering his way forward through a tackle, I'd like to be able to see him get a little bit more consistent and sort of, driving through tackle attempts, shaking off smaller players. I didn't see that, super consistently. And, the yards after contact per attempt number is good, but it's not excellent at 3.87. So that's something where, with the step up in competition, will we see that number, regress a little bit, or can he get closer to that 4 even against, better competition? Not a super elusive player. I mean, he can certainly make guys miss, but he's not, I wouldn't say that's a necessarily like a strength of his game. And then the burst that he has, it fizzles quick.
Mm.
Like he gets himself through the second level very quickly, but as soon as he's, beyond the linebackers, they are running him down every time. And it's usually not, he usually it's pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's like there's things to like here. It's similar to Taylor for me. I do like Hughes, a couple notches, maybe a little bit above that. But I think there's certainly, you're still kind of sitting here with these questions of like, what is this season going to look like? Can I trust you to be that sort of, every down type of a runner? And, I'm not sure that I can at this point.
Yeah, I agree with most of the weaknesses that you mentioned. Is he has solid power, but he relies on the power too much. If he's a small back and he doesn't like necessarily win, like he's not breaking tackles with power. He's carrying guys and
Yeah.
like sliding through contact with power. And I would love to see him be a little more agile and go to like a juke move, a jump cut, like you utilize that the how light you are and like make people miss that way, because he has like good bursts and he has good speed. He's just like, it feels like he seeks contact, and that's not a bad thing, but you got to pick your spots. And Because like when he finds that open field, he has 30 plus yard runs last year. So like that's a thing that he is good at, but it just doesn't feel like he wants to, get the breakaway. It feels like he wants to bury somebody, and it's not always like plus EV to do that. So I like this player. I like his mentality. I like his attitude. I'm going to like him at Oregon, and we'll see where he ends up being at the end of the season based on how he does against Ohio State, and Michigan, and Wisconsin, the whole gauntlet that he's going to have to face in the Big Ten.
Yeah, to close the loop on the breakaway stuff, I mean, over 50% of his breakaway runs this season came against 3 opponents: Louisiana Lafayette, Rice, and North Texas.
Yeah.
So, I mean, again, it's like he did
Those are
what
the guys
he
that can't tackle him.
he did what he needed to do against the opponents in front of him. The production is insane.
Mm-hmm.
Back-to-back seasons over 1,300 yards as a freshman and a sophomore. Incredible. So, not taking that away from him, but that's exactly why we're talking about this jump to the Big Ten is going to mean so much for him, because it seems like he was really feasting on these lower level opponents.
Yep.
All right. Okay. So I really hope we have the same guy at number 2.
Same.
I'm going to be so happy if we do, because I thought I was being a little bit nuts by putting him at number 2.
Okay.
Jonah Coleman.
Hell yeah.
Let's go.
Hell yeah.
I was like,
I was just having a blast watching him.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I'm like, I understand why maybe this is irresponsible, but at the same time, I don't care.
Yep, same. I was just like, oh, like every third play, I was like, oh, hello, like let's go. This is awesome. Yeah, he's sick.
So Jonah Coleman, the reason why maybe there's some, what was some trepidation about putting him all the way up at number 2 in this class. He's got an interesting build.
Yep.
5'9", right now listed at 222. That's going to be something we talk about in a second, because last year he was listed at 236. So he was the quintessential bowling ball runner. And if you watched him play at Arizona for 2 years, if you watched him play last year at Washington, because he's that. It's just like, oh my God, who's this little tank running around, like running guys over, making guys miss. So he was a 3-star recruit, 2022, committed to Arizona, played in all 12 games as a true freshman at 372 yards, 4 touchdowns. The following season, 863 yards on only 127 carries, plus 26 catches, 278 yards as a receiver. And I remember watching Arizona that year and being like, man, this guy's kind of fun. Like, I kind of like this guy. I don't know what he's going to be yet, but he's kind of fun. And he transferred to Washington along with his head coach, Jed Fish, who went there after Kalen DeBoer left. And he had his career best season last year, 192 carries, 1,060 yards, and 10 touchdowns last season. Obviously, that Washington team was not at the level of the one that came before it. But Jonah Coleman was awarded the team's offensive MVP at their postseason banquet. So that's how much he meant to this new look Huskies offense. But the real story here, or at least one of the big stories with him, is that over the offseason, he cut 14 pounds and 2.6% body fat. And he posted a before and after picture on his Twitter account. And he is like shredded now.
Yeah.
So I'm like, we're going to get this guy, but now he's actually like taking care of his body. And
we're doing like, best shape of their life off-season college players now.
Yes, exactly. So I hope that translates to actual, like what you get on the field, and it's not just for a Twitter photo op, but I mean, you said it, man. He's a blast.
Yeah.
He is the sort of running back that's like a little bit Cam Scadaboo-esque, where the size maybe isn't quite there and the athleticism really isn't there, but man, he just knows how to create yards. I think he's got great vision. I mean, that's, point number one for me is consistently finding cutback opportunities, consistently putting himself into favorable positions. He knows how to set guys up too.
Yep.
And that's what I love. He did it to Mason Graham last year.
Mm-hmm.
He took Mason Graham to school on on a play last year.
Yep.
Like, he can get himself into a spot to make a D lineman try to shed, and then he'll just bring it back. And it's like he's gaming these guys constantly. Really nice change of direction, elusiveness, contact, balance. Obviously, has the natural low center of gravity, so guys kind of just bounce off of him. Thought he was really good in pass protection as well. Like, he's even for a smaller player, he gets in there, he knows where to be, he knows how to pick guys up. So there's a lot to love about Jonah Coleman.
Yeah, I talk about superpowers with players, and like there's to get into these like upper tiers, you need to do something exceptionally well. You need to be elite at something. And Jonah Coleman has elite vision. He like sees things developing in real time before they're happening. He understands zone concept better than I think anybody else on this list, because he knows exactly what his keys are, how to read them, where he needs to be, when he needs to be there, how he needs to pace himself, how he needs to set it up. Like, it just feels like he has a complete understanding of how everything's going to develop before it happens. And then you put on display the physical traits of, this low center of gravity, this athleticism. Like, surprising, he had a hurdle where he like cleared a guy easily that was not like diving. Like, the guy kind of came up and Coleman was over the top and gone by the time he's like looking around seeing what happened. So like, even though he has like this extra weight and he's a bowling ball and he's a bruiser, and he still has this like surprising pop of athleticism that shows up where he can, kind of slide through, he can make a guy go left, go right, and then he can burst. And it's like, okay, this guy that's this big shouldn't be moving like this. And then, dropping extra weight and getting down to, 225 ish. And then maybe you see another gear, because he doesn't have like that top end speed where he's going to be flying, but like, maybe losing that weight adds that into his game, but not that he like necessarily needs it. But that would bring him to a higher level of where he's at right now. He also really good ball security. He has one fumble on almost 400 career touches, so that's really good. So I really like this player. Like, he's just a ton of fun to watch, and I'm just excited. This is the one player where I was like, I don't know what this class is going to look like outside of our number one guy. And Coleman was like, oh hell yeah, at least we got this.
I'm so glad you and I are on the same page with
Yeah.
this, because yeah, no, he's a blast. He is. And it's funny you bring up the long speed thing, because, I call him a limited athlete. Maybe that's unfair. He just doesn't have top end speed.
Yeah.
Like, he's consistently getting brought down from behind when he breaks. He can get the edge, he can make a guy miss, but he's going to get caught. And it's funny because the quote in the article I read about his body transformation was, they asked Coach Fish, what is this going to do for him? And Coach literally was like, yeah, maybe he just won't get run down anymore. So
if there's one thing a running back hates, it's getting caught from behind and then getting made fun of by your teammates. Because you see that like on Mic'd Up, they'll go to the sideline and they'll be like, man, that's tough. Like, now, and then you're like, your goal line guy comes in, hawks your touchdown, or you QB sneak it in or something, then you lose that too. So that's, yeah, I imagine that's something that you want to have in your bag is that long speed.
And as a pass catcher, what do you think?
I think that they're like the bones are there for like a good pass catching back. I just don't think he was asked to do it a whole lot, but he looks like he's a like pretty natural catcher of the football. He's got soft hands. He transitions well into a runner. So I mean, I think he could be, but I think he was just used on like check down, so you don't really see it that much.
Yeah, and 2023, his last year at Arizona, I remember him looking pretty good as a receiver, and I mean he had 278 yards that season, which isn't a ton, but it's certainly pretty decent for a running back. And then, like you said, it just kind of they weren't asking him to do the same things. It seemed like this year he still had 23 catches, but the yards were way down. So I definitely agree. I think the bones are there. I wouldn't call him like an elite receiving back or anything like that, but I think he can certainly hold his own there as well.
Agree.
All right. Number one, you know, every time this happens, because we're as objective as we possibly can be. Obviously every year there's noise, and I think at the end of last season there was a lot of noise about this player. And when that happens and we get into summer scouting, there's this little part of me that wants to go in and be like, this guy that didn't have more than 16 carries in a game, this is really RB1, like seriously.
Yeah.
And oh my God, he's so good.
I know. You go in and you're like, you have a presumptive favorite to be like the number one guy. And you go in, you're almost like, how, like, it give me a reason to not put you at number one, because like we try not to, like you said, we try to be objective and not biased, but you kind of start sorting things out in your head the year before so you can be ready for 2026. And Jeremiyah Love is the player we're talking about, the Notre Dame running back. It has kind of been like in the zeitgeist as the number one running back of this class. And I'll speak for myself. I'll come in and I'll be like, okay, who could be the RB1 that's not Jeremiyah Love, and why would this player not be number one? And like, will he give me a reason to move him down? And then you just like watch the tape, and it's like, god damn, like this player is really really good. Like, there's no reason for me to slide him down this list because he isn't showing me any reasons to move him down. So why do you think Love is so impressive?
Yeah, he is everything that he was built up to be and more for me. But the more part of that is I did not realize how strong he is. He's 6 foot 212 right now. He was listed at 206 though last year.
Mm-hmm.
And so we see the speed, and we'll get to that. He was running guys over. If he really was playing at 206, like he was crushing guys at that size. And now, going up and getting closer to 215, I'm really excited to see what that's going to look like, because I mean, his contact balance is exceptional. 4.39 yards after contact per attempt. That was 15th in the country for a player that his hallmark trait, his hallmark quality really is the acceleration and the speed. Like, that's what's selling the tickets.
Mm-hmm.
But he is running guys over when he's not, getting into an open space and putting that on display. So that was what really sold me. Like, he's untouchable in this class. Like, this was the same exact experience I had with Jordan Tyson last week, which was like, nobody is even near this guy in this class. He is at a different level of this position for the upcoming draft as we sit today. Obviously, the speed we've seen it. We saw it in the playoff game, Indiana, the 98-yard touchdown run, 52.5% breakaway run percentage last year. That was right in line with Ashton Genty and Travion Henderson.
The 98-yard touchdown, also the longest run in college football playoff history, by the way.
Insane. Yep. I mean, and he did that at 19 years old.
Yeah. Battling a knee injury.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was hurt. He's a teenager that's hurt and ripping off a 98-yarder in the biggest game of the year
Yeah.
at that point. So, I mean, he was doing it all. Excellent change of direction. The athleticism is showing up, straight line and laterally, consistently able to make guys miss in space. He had 62 missed tackles forced last year, but that is on limited carries. So that is the percentage wise, that is going to be up there among, even higher in the overall pecking order of college football. I thought he was a threat in the passing game as well. He's not running a ton of routes there, but they got him the ball in space and just said, do your thing. And he would do that. So I think with that and his athleticism and the fact that it seems like his hands aren't a mess, there's certainly, even more room to grow in that area as well. Also hasn't fumbled in 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, he's really kind of got all of the boxes checked for what you're looking for. The only thing you could really look at is the size. Maybe he's a little bit undersized. Well, now he's up to 215. So he's really not at all undersized anymore. So he was, almost, I was almost shocked at how much I did actually love him. Like almost like a flawless running back for me.
Yeah, yeah. I had a similar experience where I just watched him and I was like, man, this is the complete package. And I guess that's maybe what you should expect going in, but you try to quell expectations. You try to go in with an open mind and be like, what do we got? Clean slate. And sometimes consensus is just right. Like we don't have to reinvent the wheel, and you don't have to like try to subvert expectations and be like, I don't know, Jeremiyah Love he carries the ball away from his body too often. Like whatever. Like
what's funny about that too? That kept coming up in the draft process this last year, where guys would come in and be like, check out my rankings. I have 15 guys like over 25 spots from consensus, as if that's like
a flex
selling point for your, like it's okay if you don't align with consensus, like you're doing your own homework, but like that's not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah.
Just because
like what do you know that literally everybody else doesn't know? It's like it feels like a conspiracy theorist coming in and being like, I read all the papers and I came to a different thing than every single person that sanely does this for a job. And so, I'm like, you know what? Jeremiah Love's just good and people are right, and that's fine. Track athlete, like a real bona fide track athlete, was a state champion 100 meter dash in Missouri with a 10.76. So that's how you get a 98-yard touchdown on a bum knee, by being a certified track athlete, and then also having unreal contact balance, great zone vision. The gap vision can be hit and miss, but the zone scheme stuff is unbelievable. The way, similar conversation like we were having with Jonah Coleman, feels like that with Jeremiyah Love, where he just fully understands the concepts. He fully understands, what spots he needs to hit when, what his O-linemen are doing, what everybody's job is on the play, how the defense is going to react, how the flow is going to happen. Just completely like dominates in that, and then just impossible to get on the ground. Like I talked about the contact balance. He also has, like you said, really good strength, and he's also very creative in the open field. Like these guys are like never know what's going to hit them. And I kind of talk about whether you're the actor or the reactor in the play. And, some guys are kind of reacting to what the defense is doing and making, I kind of feel that way about like Makhi Hughes, where he's reacting and like getting skinny and like sliding through tacklers. Jeremiyah Love is putting the fear of God in defenders, where they're like, holy shit, what is this guy going to do to me? Like, I got to just make sure he doesn't score here. And so he breaks ankles, he's stiff arming people, he's hurdling people, he's putting the shoulder down.
The hurdle, man. He's constantly going to the hurdle, and it works. He's got like a 42-inch vertical.
It's scary. Like if I was, the coach at Notre Dame, I'd be like, hey man, I understand you can leap a single, like, tall buildings in a single bound, but let's take it easy, brother. You're not Superman. let's all right. But yeah, it feels like he is in a stratosphere above everybody else in this class, and save those you got to pick from somebody that's bad in your league, or if you're planning on tanking this year, maybe you send away one more guy so you can try to get Jeremiyah.
Yeah, we're through running backs and wide receivers. We're not super flex, so we kind of have a sense of who 101 is going to be right now, and it's Jeremiyah
Yeah,
Love right now.
and it's not super close.
No, I like Tyson a lot.
Me too.
I really do, but it's not really that close between those two.
It
right
feels
now.
like the same distance between like Genty and McMillan for me.
Yeah.
Where
Yes.
it's like, McMillan's great and we love McMillan, but Genty's 101. That's not going to be questioned. I think it's the same here. Not saying Jeremiyah Love is as high as Genty was or Tyson, but bring those both down a notch, and that's kind of the distance between them for me.
Yep, I agree with that. So I think when you talk about weakness, like what holes can you poke in his game? You mentioned like the gap scheme vision. I think really there's two things for me going into this year. The workload, what can he handle? Because he hasn't been asked to handle a lot right now. No, like I said, no games last season with over 16 carries, and quite a few games, a handful of games at least under 10 carries. Like he really was not featured much, but when he was in the game, he was just making plays. It seemed like every single time he got a touch.
Yep.
So there's the question there of can he handle more? Like why was that the way that it was? And then that kind of goes hand in hand with health, because he got dinged up at the end of the year, even on a limited workload with the knee injury. And then he was dealing with a hamstring injury in spring. I think in April practices, he was sitting out for a little bit. So it's just, that's the kind of stuff with him. It's not really like, what are you giving me on the field? It's, can you be that every down game changing sort of talent, or are you just one of these, ultra high end, like 1A, 1B type pieces? So I think that's the question with Love ahead of this season. It has nothing to do with his talent.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like the only concerns I have is can he do it as a featured bell cow kind of back, which I've been saying for a couple of years here doesn't really exist anymore. Like you don't really have a guy that's getting 3 down. He's not going to get I think 5 running backs in the NFL had 300 carries last year, and one was Josh Jacobs, who like barely made it and like didn't super even feel like a bell cow back. So like if you're going to be one of those 5 guys, cool, but also if you can be just as efficient on less touches, I think that's fine. Like, and it seems like Love can be that. And then I'd like to see him pack on a little more weight. Not that it matters, but a little bit of body armor helps with that durability. So I mean, fun player. Excited to see more development this year and just get to the draft and see where he ends up.
Oh yeah, and I think right now it's going to be another high spot. If I had to guess, I think we're talking about another first round running back, one that's going to be flirting with that sort of, teens range, maybe higher.
Yeah, especially in a class like this where the number 2 guy is like a nice piece.
Yes.
But like not somebody, there's not another guy that's going to be a number 1 like for sure out of the gate. And definitely like Jonah Coleman might be like a high 3rd round guy.
Yeah.
And like Jeremiyah Love might be a high 1st round guy. So I think there's going to be a little bit of a fight to get Jeremiyah Love in the NFL draft.
Yep. Completely agree.
And in your dynasty drafts. If you have a competitive dynasty league, like this is going to be like a highly sought after piece, because you're going to have to wait, a full year before you get anybody that's potentially close to this. at the running back position. Because, like, yes, the 2027 class has the receiver names, but, like, a running back like this, who knows?
Yep. It is kind of, I'm excited about the tight ends. I think this is going to be a good tight end group. We'll see about quarterbacks. I think it's going to be a good quarterback group, but right now we're through the two main position groups that we are worried about in Dynasty. And as of today, I would certainly be pretty worried about holding a pick and expecting to gain value over time with that pick, because I think unless you have one, two, maybe three, it's going to start falling off pretty quick unless we see big jumps out of several guys this season,
Yeah.
which is certainly possible.
I
But
think a super flex top 5 pick is really nice right now. And
yes,
I think like a non super flex like top 3 pick is really nice right now. So if you can project out that far and know that's where that's going to end up, you can feel pretty good. Otherwise, it's like kind of sketchy.
yeah. If you're one of the people that traded a 26 for a 27
Feeling pretty
just to
good.
do it, yeah, I think you're feeling pretty good. Unless that pick is Jeremiyah Love, I think you won.
Right.
So, all right. That's 6 names
Yep.
between our top 5s. So a lot different than last week. We were right on it. We even had the same fun number 2 guy. So we're back on track. But any other names that stood out to you that you want to shout out here?
Yeah, I got 2 names. One is Katron Allen, who is Nicholas Singleton's backfield mate at Penn State. I think that he's kind of the thunder to Singleton's lightning. He's been kind of eating into the workload a little bit, if you've noticed, for the last couple of years with Singleton. If you're like, man, I wish he touched the ball more. The reason he's not is because Allen's pretty good. Like that's the big and the small of it. And then Justice Haynes, who's transferring to Michigan out of Alabama. He was a really good prospect coming out of high school. Pretty solid at Alabama. Nothing like eye popping, but I'm excited to see him with a little bit of a change of scenery.
Yeah, Haynes and Trey Wisner are kind of like, if I have summer deep sleepers,
Yeah,
those are my 2 guys.
right.
Like, because with Haynes transferring and like you said, he looked good, but we never really got to see the full picture. Wisner had 1,000-yard season for Texas last year, including the playoff, but like I watched a little bit of him. He wasn't really jumping out, but like there were things to like where if he took a step forward, it's like, okay. So those are 2 guys just like deeper into the class. Keep your eyes on. Maybe they raise their stock. The other player that I was referencing way back when we were talking about Jaydn Ott as sort of an incomplete for me, that would probably be sitting at like number 7 right now, is Le'Veon Moss from Texas A&M, who had a serious knee injury. I believe it was an ACL last year, but he was off to an incredible start. He, I think, got hurt week 10. And at that point, he had 765 yards and 10 touchdowns. And I mean, I watched what I could of him from last year. And I mean, he certainly has a lot of tools. He's one of the more toolsy backs in this class, I think. Good blend of power and elusiveness. So he's a really interesting one, but coming off of a torn ACL, what is that going to look like this season? That's why I didn't really feel comfortable putting him in the top 5 today, but he is certainly one to watch, and he is expected to be ready to go for the start of this upcoming season. So we should get a hopefully a full season of Le'Veon Moss and get to see what we have there.
Oh yeah.
And there it is. 2026 running backs, summer scouting. I mean, all we can hope for is some surprises, some guys to build on last year to take the step forward. I mean, it is summer after all. We say it every year. We have a whole nother season for these guys to show. We have a whole nother season for guys to emerge and show, why we left Ashton Genty out of the top 5 last year, folks. So
I mean, I think I had him 5.
uh,
No, because my take was that he's going to end up in the top
right,
5. That's right.
right.
I wanted to rewrite history.
I think I had him at number.
I think
1,
I had him
actually.
at 1 actually. So I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
he was so good.
But let's just say I would be shocked if we had another situation like that, because at least Genty was like a dominant player.
Yeah, it was just year. Like, well, he's doing it at Boise State. Like,
right.
Can he keep doing it? Who cares? And then we care.
Right. So between running backs, wide receivers, we'll see what happens. But we have at least some really, really high-end guys at the top of each of those lists. Jeremiyah Love, your favorite for 101 2026. Next week, we will get to explore the 2026 quarterback class, which there's been quite a bit of chatter about this group. I think a lot of it has centered around Arch Manning. Will he or won't he even be in the class? We'll watch him as though he will be.
Yep.
So he'll be included. We'll get to talk about Arch next week and some of the other names that have been popping up in this potentially fun quarterback class, which would be a breath of fresh air after last year. Yeah. So we'll get to dive into that next week. If you enjoyed our discussion about running backs for 2026, be sure to find us on Twitter at camp_dynasty and TikTok at camp.dynasty. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and like the video before you get out of here, because we very much appreciate that. And if you're listening on the pod feed and you haven't done so already, like, rate, review, subscribe, share, follow. Everything helps get the word out. We got to get the word out about Jeremiyah Love. It's June, and I'm just screaming about the running back I want to draft in 10 months. Yeah. So
it's going to be a little while before we get our hands on these players. The whole college season between now and then. But we got plenty of time. Maybe pick up college football at 26 and play as Notre Dame as often as possible.
Amen to that. Thanks for stopping by Camp Dynasty this week, and we'll see you next week.